is Michelle, and you're listening to Words with Michelle, the podcast, a show where I sit down and have conversations with influencers on a range of topics, anything from natural hair, employment, discrimination, food, relationships, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at michelle@wordsmichelle.com. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. This is the last episode for 2023. I usually do a year in review or a recap, but today I wanted to speak about my absence from podcasting for the past 5 months. So today's topic is my recent health scare. It's my check-in episode. Never thought I'd be recording and publishing a show about my health, but I had to. But before we start the show, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Exhale Hair Studio and Beauty Supply, located at 155 Clark Boulevard, Unit 4 in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Want to pamper yourself for the holiday? Book an appointment with the staff of trained experts who will have you taking selfies all season long. Drop in or give them a call at 905-457-9413. Now back to the show. Man, I miss podcasting. I put it on hold for 5 long months. And the reason why is that I've been dealing with some serious health issues. Bam, I had little to no energy to even think about my podcast. I just focused all of my attention on addressing my health issues. But before I share with you my health concerns, I want to thank 2 very amazing people for getting me to take better care of myself. I have to thank my cousin Darren and his life-saving wife, yes, listen to that again, his life-saving wife, Delise, for noticing that there was something really wrong with my health. It all started this past July when I hosted a barbecue for my family from Toronto and some from Atlanta. The week before the barbecue, I was shopping and cleaning in preparation for the barbecue. I was feeling tired and nauseous, and all I wanted to do was lay down, but I continued to push myself, as usual. On the day of the barbecue, I prayed that I could stay in bed. I was feeling nauseous, and I was running on empty, and I looked even worse than I felt. I knew I looked bad because the first thing my sister told me when she showed up for the barbecue was that I looked like a skeleton. When my cousin and his wife showed up, I saw the look of concern on their faces. My cousin's wife, who just happens to be a nurse, studied my face and body and asked me a few health-related questions, and even examined my thyroid. I knew I wasn't feeling 100. I really couldn't deny it. So I answered her questions. I caught my cousin and his wife whispering and pointing at me throughout the barbecue. So I chose to stay in the kitchen for the majority of the time, just so no one could see me. A few days later, my cousin called me to ask me what was going on. He said I looked terrible. And no, I did not take offense to that. He was right. I look bad. He demanded that I go to the doctor and get some blood work done. But believe it or not, I don't have a family doctor. I usually go to the walk-in clinic when I have any issues. I know that's not good, but that's the case. But I must admit, I knew something was going on inside me. I was actually scared of what it could be. And also, I was also afraid to go to the hospital. I know that the health system is stretched to the limits, and I really wanted to get the care that I needed. Mind you, that's no excuse. I should have gone to the doctor. So after a couple of days, I went to the clinic. Even though I was there to do some blood work, I showed the doctor my stomach as I was concerned that it was getting increasingly big. I know I like food, I'm a foodie, but my stomach was massive. When I lifted up my dress to reveal my belly, the doctor's eyes widened. He left the room, got another doctor to examine me. They asked me 1,000,000 times if I was pregnant, and I repeatedly said no. I'm sure that they thought I was some crazy lady that was completely lying to them. They advised me to go straight to the ER to find out what was in my stomach. I arrived at the emergency alone and terrified. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. The last time I went to the ER for myself was when I was 17 years old, when I cut myself accidentally on the job. But this time, I had to take a CT scan and provide several samples of blood. After the CT scan and talking with a couple of doctors, I found out that I had massive fibroids, bigger than usual, which made my iron levels almost non-existent. Basically, I'm severely anemic. I was told that I needed to start taking iron pills ASAP. I also found out that I had a mass growing in my stomach. Yes, a mass. That was terrifying to hear. I could live with knowing that I had fibroids. A lot of black women get them, which is also cause for concern. But this mass? That sounded scary. An MRI was ordered for a later date so that the doctors can determine what was going on with the mass. After being in the ER for 6 long hours, a couple of nurses came up to me and told me that I needed to have an ultrasound. But I asked if I could come back the following morning because I was feeling nauseous and I had a blinding headache. They allowed me to go home and scheduled me to come in for 8 a.m. the next day. So I went back the next day and I did an ultrasound. Actually, I did two because the mass that was growing inside of me didn't make some of my organs visible in the ultrasound. So after the ultrasound, I met with another doctor and they did some more blood work. The doctor told me that I need to come back in 30 days to see if my hemoglobin, iron levels, increased. In mid August, I had my MRI. I was actually not looking forward to it. I knew I had to do it, but I was totally terrified. I am slightly claustrophobic, so I was a little nervous about going into the tube, for lack of a better word. But I did get one of my good friends to come with me just to give me a little support. So after I did the MRI, the tech that administered the MRI told me that I needed to come back to do another one because they needed another requisition to do another MRI because my mass was so big. Sadly, after the MRI, weeks went by and no one could tell me anything about the mass. I literally lived in fear for a couple of months, not knowing what was growing inside of me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore, and I reached out to yet another doctor at yet another walk-in clinic. So he told me to sit on the table, and he examined my belly. He was concerned when he saw my stomach and told me to go to any hospital and force them to take this mass out. I'm not kidding, y'all. He really said that. So after that, I called my gynecologist and let them know that I was going to the hospital for an unrelated reason. So a day later, they called me back to say that the mass was benign and that my operation would be in November or December. Wow, I cried happy tears in my mom's arms, so relieved that I had a date for the surgery and also finding out that the mass wasn't harmful. I was truly grateful. So for about a month, I prepped myself mentally for surgery. As the days went by, I was getting increasingly tired as the fibroids were getting bigger and my mass was growing as well. I looked and felt very pregnant. But can you believe that all through this time I was planning a birthday party for my mom? Nope, I really didn't want to throw a party for my mom, but my family that visited in the summer really wanted to celebrate my mom's monumental birthday. I honestly didn't have the energy to organize a huge party, but I did what I could. My mom's birthday party was scheduled 3 days before my operation. I was actually hoping that I would have my surgery earlier. I really didn't want my family and friends to see me looking the way I looked. I don't want to sound vain, but I just felt and looked bad. But my mom's birthday party happened, and I can honestly say that being around my cousins was pure joy. It was the highlight of my year. They didn't care what I looked like. They just wanted to see me and make sure I was okay. And of course, they wanted to see my mom, the birthday girl. So on November 15th, one of my cousins picked me up and took me to the hospital. If you only knew how scared I was. I wasn't sure what was going to happen in surgery. I knew it was a major operation. The doctors would not only be removing my fibroids, but that mass. That was overwhelming to comprehend. But my cousin stayed by my side until I went into surgery. I appreciated that. I needed the love and support. When it was time for my operation, my doctor came to my stretcher and we walked to the operating room. I hopped on the table, got the anesthesia, and I was out. I woke up in recovery and I looked around and saw a bunch of other patients. I was groggy, but I was happy to be alive. I don't think you could have wiped the smile off of my face. After a couple of hours, I went to my assigned room. I grabbed my cell and I basically texted everyone I knew, letting them know that I made it out of surgery. Some of the texts made no sense as I was hopped up on some severe painkillers. My sister and cousin showed up a few moments later. I was so happy to see them. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days. When I got home, I felt a little weak, but I knew I felt a whole lot better. It's now 5 weeks after my surgery, and I feel a lot better. Not 100%, not even 80, but I'm getting stronger and I look healthier. Which kind of brings me to the point of why I wanted to publish this show. I really wanted to talk about my experience so that you don't have to go through this. I really let fear get the better of me. I am so grateful to all my cousins that noticed I look like a hot mess. Even a few neighbors mentioned that I needed to take care of myself. Glad I decided to do something about it. I honestly feel like a new woman, just getting used to my this new body. I'm smaller than I've ever been in my entire life, but I'm so grateful for life. I want to thank my family, my mom, my sister, cousins, aunts, and friends that prayed for me and sent positive thoughts and vibes my way. Definitely need to shout out my nephew for checking up on me. Andre, you're the best nephew ever. I want to thank the staff at William Osler and my doctor. You saved my life, girl. Eternally grateful. So that's it, friends. So glad to be able to produce the show and share with you what I've been going through. So, if you'd like to know more about the procedure, or you just want to say hey, feel free to send me an email at michelle@wordswithmichelle.com. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of the year. Bye. Thanks for joining me for the latest episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on Apple Podcasts. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you have any questions or would like to provide feedback, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email me at michelle@wordswithmichelle.com. You can also email me if you have inquiries regarding sponsoring the show. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.